The fact that the Syrian army practically did not resist the advancing forces of pro-Turkish and pro-American militants, and allowed them to capture the country within a few days, indicates that the generals surrounding President Bashar al-Assad betrayed their leader and sided with the enemy. All the key cities of Syria, including Sarakib, Aleppo, Hama, Homs, and even Damascus, fell without a fight. Even the militants themselves admitted that they did not meet serious resistance from government troops during their offensive. Moreover, the Syrian High Military Command was the very first to report on the fall of the Assad regime and the flight of the Syrian president from Damascus. The same High Military Command that had to defend the legitimate government to the last, which had served so faithfully. My dear truth seekers, to be honest, the current behavior of the Syrian army reminded me of the tragic events of the protracted Iraq War that lasted from 2003 to 2011. Let me remind you that during this war, the rather powerful 700,000-strong Iraqi army also began to behave very strangely. Iraqi army units stopped resisting along the entire combat contact line, surrendering strategically important towns and cities to the enemy without a fight. Back then, many Middle Eastern sources admitted that the Iraqi generals had betrayed Saddam Hussein and ordered their units not to resist the advancing enemy troops. The fact that after the end of the war, practically all Iraqi generals received high positions in the new government of Iraq is clear evidence that Saddam Hussein was defeated and lost his country due to the betrayal of his own generals. My dear truth seekers, I am absolutely sure that the same thing will happen again, but this time in Syria. Pro-Turkish militants who came to power in Syria will also give the Syrian generals, who betrayed Bashar al-Assad, high positions in the new government of the country. As I said earlier, Bashar al-Assad's main mistake was that after the convincing victory of the Syrian army in 2016, he got rid of all experienced and independent combatant commanders, and put in their place, as it seemed to him, loyal generals, who were not even having experience in commanding troops. In addition, for 8 years, Bashar al-Assad has also soured relations with all the militias, who fought for him from 2011 to 2016. We are talking about Druze, Afghans, and Libyans. In fact, the units of these militias were the most combat-ready force in the Syrian army. However, after 2016, instead of continuing to strengthen relations with the militias and create good living conditions for them in Syria, the entourage of the Syrian president continued to steal and behave rather defiantly. All this has led to the fact that Libyans, Afghans, and Druze have lost motivation to fight for Bashar al-Assad. That is why when the pro-Turkish and pro-American militants launched their offensive against government forces, the experienced and well-armed units of these militias did not stand up for the Syrian president. Unfortunately, we need to admit that Syria is gone. And the civil war in this country will continue. The victorious pro-Turkish militants from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham continue to seize the remaining territories in Syria. At the same time, the militants made it clear that they intend to take control of the entire territory of Syria, including the oil-rich north of the country, where the US-backed Kurds are located. Moreover, they also intend to take control of the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Against this backdrop, on December 8, Israel sent troops into the border areas of Syria. According to Israeli Minister of Diaspora Affairs, Amichai Chikli, this was done in order to prevent pro-Turkish militants from settling near the Israeli border. Moreover, the Kurdish warlords also began to show discomfort with what was going on. According to them, the Kurds will never accept the authority of pro-Turkish militants. It is reported that the number of clashes between the US-backed Kurds and pro-Turkish militants has doubled over the past 48 hours. Against this backdrop, a full-scale conflict may begin in Syria not only between the Kurds and the militants of the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group, but also between the United States and Turkey. By the way, the United States has already made it clear to Turkey that Washington will not abandon its support for the Kurds in the region, even despite Ankara's displeasure. In particular, US President-elect Donald Trump has invited the head of the Kurdish People's Defense Units, Mazlum Kobani, to his inauguration ceremony in Washington. In Turkey, Donald Trump's move was called unfriendly and even insulting. According to many experts, by inviting the Kurds to Washington, Donald Trump severely humiliated Erdogan and made it clear to him that the United States would not refuse to support Ankara's enemies in the region. As for the Russian military bases in Tartus and Khmeimim, their fate remains unclear. At the moment, Russia set these military bases on full alert. It is reported that the situation near these military bases is calm. The militants do not show aggression and do not try to attack. It is noteworthy that after a telephone call between Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan, pro-Turkish militants from the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group declared that they want to establish ties with the Russian side, and that the fate of Russian military bases would be decided at the upcoming negotiations between Turkey, Russia, and the new Syrian authorities. If Vladimir Putin will not be able to keep these military bases in Syria, it will be a real victory for the United States and Britain. The fact is that it was thanks to these military bases in Tartus and Khmeimim that Russia kept the Black Sea Straits open to the Russian fleet and regularly supplied its forces in Africa with everything necessary. In the end, I would like to add that the main loser in this situation is Iran. All of Tehran's positions in Syria were completely destroyed within 1 week. At the end of 2024, it turned out that Russia, the West, and the countries of the Middle East greatly overestimated Tehran's military and political capabilities. All this time, the whole world thought that Iran was an advanced country in terms of an agent network, business contacts, modern weapons technologies, and its proxies in the hottest spots of the Middle East. However, then, in just a year of military pressure from Israel and the United States, Tehran began to rapidly lose all its influence and power, as a result of which Iran lost Syria, which for many decades had been a powerful stronghold of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.